Welcome back. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa has confirmed that the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council, NACAC, has wrapped up its work after 3 years and delivered its final report. Now, the council is calling for a permanent, independent body to be known as the Office of Public Integrity and Anti-Corruption, which would then focus on tackling and preventing corruption, a step also urged by the State Capture Commission. But could the creation of this Office of Public Integrity and Anti-Corruption finally give South Africa the breakthrough it needs in the fight against corruption? Let's ask Corruption Watch consultant Karam Singh, who joins us now for this conversation. Karam, thank you so much for the time. Appreciate it. What are your thoughts? I mean, the president puts this forward. You hear from the council itself saying this is what needs to be done in order to help curb corruption and create accountability. What do you think?
Thank you very much. I think it's important to remind the viewers of the context in which this comes. If we go back 15 years or so, we had the Scorpions, which were disbanded, and then we had an era of state capture where there really was a real attack on institutions within the criminal justice sector that were involved in fighting corruption. We had the Glenister litigation, which went up to the Constitutional Court, which came up with a ruling that South Africa had an obligation in terms of its international obligations, in terms of being a signatory to the UN Convention Against Corruption, and as an interpretation of the Bill of Rights, to have a dedicated, independent anti-corruption agency. And we haven't had that since the dissolution of the Scorpions. We've had a national anti-corruption from 2020 to 2030. As part of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, we had the establishment of the National Advisory Council Against Corruption. And that's where we're at now. They have finished their mandate. They were chaired by the now Minister of Police, Feroz Kachalia. They've done their closeout report, and in their recommendations, they talk about the establishment of a new office, the Office of Public Integrity. I think it's also important to note that there have been other recommendations around the establishment of an independent anti-corruption agency. There was the private members bill tabled by Glenis Breitenbach at Parliament. So I think there's a real sense that despite efforts, despite the sound work of the Zondo Commission and the numerous recommendations, that we still really haven't turned a corner when it comes to fighting systemic corruption. The corruption is becoming deep-seated within our culture, that we see large corruption scandals coming all the time. It's relentless. So we need to revisit how we've been dealing with it, and we do need an institutional refresh. This is what the Zondo Commission spoke about in terms of the establishment of new institutions. So I think one remains somewhat concerned at the slow lack of progress.
Sure.
Even the president's response to the NAC's report, while making the right noises, is very short on detail in terms of commitments and in terms of timeframes. And this OPI recommendation itself, I think, needs to be brought now into the parliamentary space.
Sure.
We need to put it side by side with the proposals, the private members bill, and then have this thoroughly debated and begin the legislative process to create the new institution.
Karam, if you're a South African citizen just watching all of this happening, and the next thing you're hearing is, instead of dealing with corruption, we're going to form another institution that's meant to deal with corruption. I know you speak about an institutional refresh, but it would just feel like we're hiring more people, spending more money in order to do a job that should have been done by whether it be the NPA, the Hawks, the police, etc. And yet we're just creating another institution in order to try and get this job done, and we're not succeeding. How do we respond to South Africans?
The creation of another institution is not an end in itself. Nobody's saying that with this new institution, we're going to turn the corner, we're going to solve our corruption issues, and we're going to arrive in a new dawn. It needs to be seen as part of a number of different initiatives which are looking at how we strengthen capacity within the state. So we have the independent directorate, which has already been established at the MPA. The Special Investigating Unit has been pursuing asset recovery cases in front of the Special Tribunal. And the process of building capacity, of building the right systems in place within the state is a never-ending process. Corruption is always evolving, and we need to continue to develop and evolve our response to it. So nobody's saying that we're all going to sit on our hands and do nothing while we wait for this new institution to come. There's a lot that's going on, but unfortunately, it hasn't been as well coordinated as we would like, and it hasn't been effective in terms of fundamentally, making a dent in terms of the challenges we sit with systemic corruption.
And it's that coordination that then becomes such a key worry, because you could have duplication. You could have turf wars within the law enforcement themselves. You have those massive inefficiencies. How do you avoid all of those when you consistently are making new institutions to come to play, to try and fight that very same corruption? Does that not create this massive loop where we don't actually get anything done, but we have a lot of people all talking about it?
Potentially. I mean, I think a lot of people would say that that's the kind of situation that we have now. We have some outstanding institutions, the Financial Intelligence Center, we have the Auditor General, we have a lot of capacity within the state to identify corruption. But as you say, at present, it hasn't been coordinated effectively. We know that we have this big commission of inquiry starting next week into the police. And I think we have to look at the fact that corruption within the police has been absolutely an Achilles heel, which has held us back. So the Financial Intelligence Center does its work. Other forensic investigators do their work. The matters get passed into the police because the police have the ultimate authority in terms of law enforcement to do the arrests. And then we know that we have challenges there. So, there's no simple answers. There's no silver bullets. There's no low-hanging fruit. The work of building a resilient constitutional democracy that can deal with the threats that it faces is ongoing. We see advanced democracies that have this systemic corruption problems creeping. What's important is that we have the absolute political will, the drive, and the urgency now, because we've been talking a lot, there've been a lot of consultations, but now's the time to really begin to transform those proposals into real institutional gains for the country.
Yeah, one wonders whether there's a massive difference between being seen to do something and actually doing something, because that's what it feels like sometimes with this conversation, is that we're seen to be doing something because we keep on having symposiums or conversations or wanting to perform new offices and councils, etc., all coordinating and speaking. And then it still continues, unfortunately, in the way that it does. How long would it take for South Africa to, and in some societies it's very difficult to do so, maybe not rid itself of corruption, but really stem it out at the most basic levels of you and I, right through to Parliament and all those power bearers?
Given the state that we're in, given the fact that corruption has become a cultural issue, it's become a common practice. It's affecting across the public sector, affecting public institutions, local government, state-owned enterprises. There's no quick fixes here. This is not. We're not going to turn a corner the day that we have new legislation around the OPI. We're going to have to continue the hard work of ensuring that all of our institutions across the state that have some mandate dealing with corruption, whether it be policing, whether it be the prosecution services, whether it be the hard work of trying to recover stolen assets, that all of these institutions are sound, that they're led by leaders with integrity, and that there's political will to drive this from the top. And I really fear that that's what we have not seen. We have not seen consistent, dedicated political will to say this, this cabinet, this presidency will ensure that before its time is done, that it will leave South Africa in a better place than it was before it took the reins of power. That was the promise of the New Dawn. That was the promise of what where the Zondo Commission was meant to take us. And 7, 8 years down the line from the work of the Zondo Commission, we haven't got there yet. And I think it would be a kind of false optimism to say that that the victory against corruption is imminent, or that we can even see the light at the end of the tunnel at this stage.
Wow, it doesn't paint a great picture in itself, but at the very least, if we protected whistleblowers, that would be a key component. And I'm going to ask you about that. But in the meantime, let's also show you just what our poll question is for today, Karam, if you'll help participate in this one, because we're asking the audience, those that are watching at home, what they think about South Africa's efforts in combating crime. And at least it's those efforts that we're talking about, right? And the three options we gave the viewers at home was corruption is getting worse, that there is progress being made, or C, little has changed. And I mean, you can probably guess which one is taking the bulk of the votes this morning, and it's that corruption is getting worse. Do you think if we were protecting whistleblowers more, I mean, we see this in whether it be the solvency cases, lawyers, and whistleblowers, all who have unfortunately been murdered. And that means that nobody wants to call out corruption as much as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, I think from the standpoint of Corruption Watch and civil society, this has been something that we've called for consistently, is that we need an enhanced whistleblower support and protection system. And, the trend seems to be now going after forensic professionals and others. And the concern is, as you say, that over time this will create a chilling effect, that people will fear that it's just too dangerous, that there's just too many risks to come forward. And this was also part of the mandate of the NACAC to look at the issue of whistleblowing. And I think, this is something that we've called for, the fact that we need to have more resources put into the issue of both whistleblower protection and witness protection, and that we need to have some kind of a public office that people can trust, that they know that they can go to, that they know that their anonymity will be protected, and that works, as part of this this multi-agency approach to creating an environment which is much safer for whistleblowers. At the moment, it's dangerous out there, and it's people are concerned about coming forward, and that that the violence being meted out against whistleblowers ultimately will have a knock-on effect and will have this chilling stopping people from coming forward.
It is of grave and key concern then that corruption continues to not just linger, but live in and amongst us. Karam Singh, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us this morning on AM Report. Corruption Watch's Karam Singh joining us as we talk about the National Anti-Corruption Strategy implementation and how South Africa may be getting it wrong or getting it right, and whether there's sufficient political will to get things done.